Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers for Tuesday, December 28th, 2021. And we have Alex Smart coming on in just a few minutes to talk some NFL as well as NBA. And I wish we could talk more college basketball. Unfortunately, a lot of games wiped out. We'll tell you about that. And also a big day for bowls. You have the Birmingham Bowl kicking off in a few minutes between Houston and Auburn, and plenty of other bowls that we'll take a look at coming up in just a little bit. Though before we get to Alex, let's talk to you about BetMGM. They're the king of sports books. New players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, new players only, must be 21 years or older to play, and legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. Let's bring on our man, Alex Smart, who joins us every Tuesday here on the Daily Insider. And Alex, 54-37-2 in the NFL, 59% plus 13-15. And you are on right now, what, a 10-0 run to the in your guarantees in the NFL?
Yeah, it's been a nice run for sure.
Yeah, and you're coming off a week in which your guarantee was what, the Lions?
Yeah, it's not a marquee game, but it's all about profits, so that's where we went.
Yeah, so you took the Lions plus 6.5. They covered in Atlanta. The Falcons hadn't won a home game this year. They finally broke through. Lions actually had a chance to win that game outright, but good call on that one. Now, you and I will say, we'll get to the Monday night game in a second. You and I were both on Jacksonville on Sunday, and I watched the replay. I was out and about, and I was checking my phone on Sunday. I watched the replay of that final sequence Jacksonville had, first and goal at the 5. Now I know why they have 2 wins. Now I know why they're so bad that I don't know how in the world from the 5 you couldn't punch one in.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it was really it was hard on the head. We get those all the time. After a while, you take so many punches to the head in this business that you become numb. So I just sort of I laughed it off and said, okay, all right, that's a lesson for me right there.
Yeah, and the other thing too with that game was, Alex, that Trevor Lawrence had a long run to get to the 5, and I said, oh wow, like they're set up well here. First down, terrible throw in the flat. Yeah. Second down, went through the defender's hands. Receiver caught it at the 1. Jacksonville's out of timeouts, but yet Trevor Lawrence decides to spike the ball, so you waste a down. And then on 4th down, they had the illegal shift, and they had an incomplete pass, and obviously the Jets accepted the penalty, or declined the penalty and accepted the incomplete pass. But I'm thinking, why did you waste a down? You still had like 17 seconds from the 1. Throw the ball, do something. But like stopping the clock there, now you only had 3 downs instead of 4 downs, which made no sense to me.
None of it made any sense. I just watched Lawrence. I just watched that. I watched the entire Jacksonville team. I know the Jets defense is bad, so I'm not surprised when they march all the way down the field and have a chance to take this victory. But I shouldn't say what wasn't surprising was how bad. You just said it at the very beginning of our conversation about this. Jacksonville is bad. There's nothing you can do. Well, we'll put it this way. Lawrence, despite of all the accolades he gets, is no Tom Brady. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I understand he's a rookie. I understand they went through the whole Urban Meyer thing, but still, I mean, you got to show some flashes. In the last 2 weeks, they've lost to the Jets and Texans, and I am not an Urban Meyer fan by any stretch, but I say he left, he still lost to 2 bad teams, so maybe it's the talent.
Yeah, maybe it is the talent. Absolutely, I agree with you.
Now, let's look at last night, and the Dolphins end up beating the Saints 20-3 at the Superdome. Now, a couple things here, Alex. Number one, a lot of people will go to the Dolphins, this 7-game winning streak, it's a little fraudulent because they beat the Jets twice, they beat the Giants, they beat Carolina. New Orleans had a 4th-string quarterback making his NFL debut. They beat Houston. But you still got to take care of business when it's all said and done. They had a pick 6 early. You still got to win the game. Like, no matter what you did, you went into a tough environment, played a good defense, you still came out with the victory.
No, accolades to them. They beat who they're supposed to beat, and that is the sign of a well-coached team to me, a team with chemistry, that plays within their talent base. I mean, they're not the most talented team in the league, but hey, they're beating who they're supposed to beat. And that's really extremely important. And, you're getting lines that you can deal with when you back Miami too.
And the other thing with the Dolphins, and understandably, the offense didn't do a lot last night. Jalen Waddle had another great game. He's this rookie class of receivers in the first round, Jamar Chase and even Devontae Smith with the Eagles, that they're having tremendous years, which is good to see. But the defense has carried the Dolphins again. And yeah, Ian Book, he's got a long way to go. Alvin Kamara pretty much got shut down for the most part last night. But the Dolphins, they still have found ways to win. And if they win their final two against Tennessee and New England, they're in the playoffs. They were 1-7, Alex. They could be in the playoffs.
Amazing. No, it truly is amazing. And I don't know what the historical odds of that are going forward. I hadn't checked on that, but it's, there is that possibility. And with that defense, anything can happen in the playoffs. So
Now, what else stuck out to you from this past weekend? I mean, dating back even to Saturday with the Colts and the Cardinals game, as well as Packers Browns. Anything else stick out to you that kind of made you think or kind of gave you an opinion on something?
Something that really stood out to me was the absolute annihilation that Dallas put on Washington, and the absolute disrespect they had as they just continued to pound away with absolute. I mean, the word is absolute, like zero respect. Obviously, they had won this game. They had it in hand. They just pound away. And I don't know if it was Washington just stood aside, but it looked bad. And there wasn't a lot of respect there. NFL teams, there is in pro football what we call a respect ratio. And, you've got to relax a little bit when you've got that big of a lead, but this was just like, punch in the face, and don't stop. So it was, that made me think.
And also too, it shows you, Alex, that when we look at basketball and baseball and hockey, these long seasons, things happen, and everyone's like, "Oh, football's such a short season." It's really a long season, even though it's just now it's 17 games. We had 16 games for a long time because Washington, a month ago, they had a 4-game winning streak. They beat Tampa Bay. They stifled Tom Brady. They had a couple good road wins. And since then, the Philly game was a tough spot, the Tuesday, and Heineke didn't play. But Dallas pretty much dominated them both times. The first game was a little misleading at the end because the Cowboys let them back in. But Dallas was up 24-0 the first time in D.C. They win 56-14. Like, that's just utter domination what Dallas did to Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It's woken me up. And I know Dallas is very inconsistent, but you see those flashes of brilliance and that absolute domination that they can bring to a game. And you got to shake your head and think, what's wrong with them when they go into their deep deep depressions where they just are very inconsistent. So that's a team I'm keeping my eyes on.
Yeah, and Dallas in that mix for the number one seed in the NFC. Green Bay, they're a game behind, or Cowboys are a game behind Green Bay. Arizona's got a big game at Dallas coming up this Sunday. So if the Cardinals can somewhat get over their little hump right now, and they're struggling, they would get the tiebreaker over Dallas. The Rams picked up another win this past week. Now looking ahead to week 17, not the final week, but week 17 of the NFL. Any games right now that have caught your eye? You have Chiefs, Bengals, a pretty good one in the AFC. Again, Cardinals, Cowboys, Vikings, Packers Sunday night. Anything stick out to you?
Well, I'll tell you something that stuck out to me. We're going right back. Do we have the cannolis to back Jacksonville as a double-digit underdog? That's where I'm at right now. I constantly say, are you going to do that again? And after being in this business for years and years and years, and you know what? I'm still doing it. I'm still double guessing myself from time to time. So, that's a game that stands out right now.
Well, the other thing too, Alex, with that game, and the Patriots were now laying 15.5 to Jacksonville. So Jacksonville, like we mentioned before, off 2 losses to 2 terrible teams. Now you're playing a New England team that I'm not going to call them desperate, but they lose to Buffalo last week or this past Sunday. Now maybe Buffalo is going to pass them in the AFC East. You're laying over 2 touchdowns here, where Jacksonville's got nothing to play for, but they'd like to trip up New England. I mean, there's always something there playing the Patriots, but man, off back-to-back losses to be laying that amount.
Yeah, just yeah. I've got to shake my head going forward here, but that Jacksonville team. We beaten this like a dead horse, but the truth is this team. You said it once again earlier. It's the talent level, and you have to take that into consideration. How big of a spread is too big of a spread? And how much of an underdog value do we really have with them? And I'm going to consistently look at this all week, and I don't know. I could easily, it sounds very strange, but I could easily lay double digits against them and also feel confident. So,
who do you have more faith in? I'm going to give you 2 games. Who do you have more faith in? Jacksonville plus 15.5 at New England, or the Jets plus 13 at home against Tampa Bay?
That's a difficult
right?
Question. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of confidence either way here. I'll make a decision later on in the week when I feel a little bit braver, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, you could, from a square perspective, you would say, oh, laying points with Tampa Bay on the road, it's just not a pro's move. But I've seen many pros, many big whales lay a lot of money on road favorites and cash very easily. So we'll see.
Let's transition to the NBA tonight, Alex. And again, it's always a guessing game. We found out yesterday Jason Tatum was out and the protocols for Boston. They end up losing to Minnesota. That things pop up. Trae Young came back for Atlanta and they still lost to Chicago. But the game of the night tonight in the NBA out west, the Nuggets and the Warriors out in San Francisco. Warriors laying 6.5, it's creeping up to 7 at some places. And a total of 217.5. Golden State 27-6. Denver 16-16. They dealt with a lot of injuries so far this year. Anything that would get you interested in this game tonight?
Yeah, I have some interest to the point of looking at the line and saying, for example, well, we know how dominant Golden State has been at home this season. They've won 16 of 18 games. They've cashed 14 of those games, and the average point per game differential is 15.6 points per game. Denver's been very inconsistent all season long, and you really don't know what you're going to get from them. The only concern and the only reason why I laid off this game is after putting all that energy out in that previous game against Phoenix last time out, winning on the road. Will they come out flat and have to make a late run? There are so many variables here, and that's the only reason why I'm off that game. But if I was going to bet the game, I would, I think, back Golden State just because of how overpowering they've been at home and how they just don't take their foot off the pedal no matter what. So.
Yeah, and Golden State, they actually have back-to-back with Denver. They play in Denver coming up on Thursday. Nuggets off a win over the Clippers back a few days ago. They're actually 0-3 against the spread their last 3. They covered last time as a dog, or won outright at Atlanta. But, it should be a pretty good game out there in San Francisco. Alex Smart joining us here on the Daily Insider, and always appreciate a few minutes from Alex. You can check out his picks at Vegas Insider. He's on a 10-0 run in the NFL and guarantees. So check back with him coming up on Sunday, since we have no Thursday games in the NFL this week. Alex, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Always appreciate your time too, Kevin. Take care. Have a good day.
All right, you too. There is Alex Smart. And big run, 10-0 on his last 10 guarantees in the NFL. Hit the Lions on Sunday. Almost beat the Falcons outright. But the Lions, though, they've been a covering machine this season. And the Falcons, if I'm not mistaken, I want to double check on this one. I mean, they won their first home game, but I just want to check before we continue. I don't think the Falcons have covered a home game this year, even as a dog. But let me just make sure, because they have one home game left. That's against New Orleans in Week 18. But yeah, they've not covered a game at home Atlanta this year, which is pretty mind-boggling, I would say, at this point. All right, now I want to tell you about DraftKings. And you know who this guy is? We tell you about him all the time. He's the GOAT. He wears the crown. And if you want to wear the crown proudly, like the GOAT, score your seats to the Tournament of Champions. And check it out at DraftKings.com today. The DraftKings Championship Series is the ultimate competition of contest winners from daily fantasy sports, sportsbook, and casino. The one and only place you can compete in the king of competitions. The best of the best in each domain will compete for series supremacy in their own domain's tournament of champions. They'll have one goal in mind: win the ultimate crown and earn the title of the greatest of all time, the GOAT. That's right. Our friend, towards the end of 2021, he's wearing that crown. He'll wear it again in 2022 proudly. That's what he does. Go to DraftKings.com today for more details. All right, so we have plenty of bowl games today. We'll look at the NBA card in just a moment. But right now, college football, the Birmingham Bowl is underway, the historic Birmingham Bowl. And Houston leads Auburn 7-0 in the first. The Cougars closed as a 1.5-point favorite. Bo Nix not playing for Auburn because he's transferring. But I'll tell you something. What's his name? The guy from West Virginia. I'm blanking on his name right now. Who's done a pretty good job with them this season. And he, Dana Holgerson. As soon as I was like trying to figure it out, his name popped in my head. But Dana Holgerson's done a really good job with that Houston team this year, and they had a tough loss. Was it SMU, right, on that kickoff return late in that game? But Holgerson's done a really good job with Houston this season. I know it was a bit tough in the AAC considering Cincinnati ended up, winning the conference and they're in the Final Four. But no, I'm sorry, they won the SMU game. It was that's right. That's what it was. Sorry about that. I got a little tangled up there. They lost the Texas Tech game in week 1. That was the game in Houston at the Texans Stadium. Then they went on that big run. They beat SMU on the kickoff return, and they ended up losing to Cincinnati in the AAC championship. All right. Then they get relegated to the Birmingham Bowl. And I get Auburn's an SEC team, but still. Okay, that was my bad on that one, that Houston SMU game. Anyway, so let's look at the rest of the bowls for today. The First Responder Bowl, and it's Louisville and Air Force. And Louisville has been a team this season. I remember I backed them in that Clemson game that they were up and they ended up blowing it at the end, and they had a chance to win it, and they couldn't score from inside the 10. But Louisville, they had some bad breaks this year, losing by 3 to Wake, losing by 1 to Virginia. They lost that game by 6 to Clemson. They also led NC State 10-7 going to the fourth quarter, and NC State scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of that game to win at 28-13. So Louisville, the Kentucky game at the end, they got blown out. Air Force, they have 3 close losses this year, all by 7 or less to Army, San Diego State, and Utah State. I mean, you saw what Utah State did in the Mountain West Championship and then winning the LA Bowl against Oregon State. San Diego State, again, another good team that beat UTSA in their bowl, and they lost to Army in overtime. In all 3 games, they were favored. This one, it's around a pick 'em, 1 either way. Air Force laying 1 right now. But Air Force 9-3, Louisville 6-6. So that game starts up at 3:15. And that game down in Dallas. And that's the next game coming up after the Birmingham Bowl, which is going on right now. The Liberty Bowl, give me Liberty or give me nothing. Mike Leach faces his former team, Mississippi State and Texas Tech. So the Bulldogs laying 10.5 there against the Red Raiders. And Mississippi State 7-5. Obviously, they want to bounce back after losing the Egg Bowl to Ole Miss 31-21. And Mississippi State, down the stretch, they won 4 of 6 since losing by 40 to Alabama. They had a couple close losses early in the season. That Memphis game, that was the one with that silly kickoff return or punt return where the ball was touched and the guy from Memphis still ran it back, and it should have not been a touchdown. And they lost by 3 to LSU, lost by 3 to Arkansas. So Mississippi State had some close losses this year. Texas Tech, just bad finish for them. Dropped 4 or 5, did upset Iowa State down the stretch. But Texas Tech, they had a bit of a rough season, so Mississippi State, a heavy favorite there against Texas Tech. The Holiday Bowl tonight in San Diego at Petco Park, where the Padres play. UCLA and NC State. The Wolfpack laying 2 against the Bruins. NC State finished at 9-3, UCLA at 8-4. And NC State closed the season winning 4 of 5. A couple close losses, losing to Miami by 1, losing to Wake by 3. UCLA won their final 3 games. They blew out USC. They beat Cal and Colorado. The only issue I have with Washington or with UCLA is some of the wins they had. Stanford, and I know Stanford beat USC earlier in September, but Stanford, Arizona, who was bad, Washington underachieved, Colorado, USC, Cal, and UCLA lost to the likes of Utah, Oregon. Those 2 were in the Pac-12 title game. They got blown out by Arizona State. They lost to Fresno State as 11-point favorites. Chip Kelly's done a better job with that UCLA team, and who they really beat this year in the Pac-12. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl, the late night game out in Arizona, row the boat with PJ Fleck. Minnesota and West Virginia. The Golden Gophers at 8-4. They beat Wisconsin in the season finale this year. Minnesota's actually 2-0 in bowls under PJ Fleck, but both those wins came as an underdog. Now they're favored. And Minnesota, after they lost, they got 2 really head-scratching losses this year, to Illinois and to Bowling Green. Lost to Iowa, that's fine. But besides that, beat Purdue, beat Nebraska as a home dog. I mean, they didn't really beat a lot of quality opponents in the Big Ten except for Wisconsin. I mean, Purdue pulled off some upsets this year, but Wisconsin was their best win. And they take on West Virginia, who is without their top running back, who's sitting out the game for the Mountaineers. West Virginia's last 2 wins came against Texas, who was a total tank job at the end, and Kansas, who's terrible. Did beat Iowa State. That's a good win. But besides that, I don't have a lot of faith in the Mountaineers tonight against the Golden Gophers. Now, in the NBA this evening, there are, 8 games. We mentioned Denver Golden State with Alex Smart. Magic laying 2 touchdowns against, or the Bucks laying 2 touchdowns to the Magic tonight. Cole Anthony out for Orlando with an ankle injury. Milwaukee's just owned Orlando over the last 9 straight wins they have, going back to the bubble. And that total at 215.5, 216. Philadelphia laying 6.5 at Toronto. That Raptors team, who was just decimated by COVID, their roster, they had nobody to turn to on Sunday night, and their loss to Cleveland. Cleveland just whacked them. And now Toronto's getting 6.5. If Toronto gets some pieces back, it's helpful, but right now that roster's terrible. Washington's at Miami, and the Heat laying 6.5. Bradley Beal's still in the protocol for the Wizards, and he's questionable tonight. Jimmy Butler back for the Heat. Montrezl Harrell, he's in the COVID protocol, so that's not helpful for Washington. And the Heat at 21-13. Knicks and the Timberwolves in Minnesota. You see that, the Greg Monroe revenge game last night? He signed a 10-day contract. I mean, granted, he didn't really have a long stay with the Celtics, but he helped the Timberwolves beat the Celtics. No Towns, no D'Angelo Russell, no Anthony Edwards, and yet Minnesota still won that game against Boston last night. Knicks laying 4.5, 5 at Target Center this evening. Lakers and the Rockets in Houston. Rockets, they got blown out by the Hornets last night, so they're back at home. Jalen Green expected back tonight for Houston. LeBron and the Lakers, they're 16-18. And they've just gone totally backwards. The Cavaliers and the Pelicans, Cleveland continues to cover games. Best ATS team in the league. Cavs laying 4.5 against the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram probably won't play for New Orleans. He got hurt against Oklahoma City a few nights ago. Nuggets and the Warriors. Golden State now laying 7.5 to Denver. Oklahoma City's at Sacramento. Thunder 10-2 against the spread their last 12 on the road. They've covered 6 straight. Their head coach, those in the protocols. Sacramento, they've lost their last 3, and they got blown out by Memphis a few days ago. Actually, you see the Grizzlies last night beating the Suns. John Moran had that layup at the end. Really good win for Memphis last night on the road to beat the Suns. College basketball, I wish we could go over a lot, but there's only like literally a handful of games today. And, of course, the games that are going on, Gonzaga laying 33 to North Alabama. Baylor laying 39 in Northwestern State, and Texas laying 34.5 to Incarnate Word. Those are our choices. Texas Tech laying 29 to Alabama State in 2 hours. The other 3 games, Notre Dame, 4-point favorite at Pitt in ACC action. Boise State, 4.5-point favorite against Fresno State in Mountain West action. And Yale taking on St. Mary's late. And St. Mary's 12.5-point favorite there. Come on, college basketball. We got to get this together. Because there's been games that have been postponed all over the place. And I understand that these schools have got to worry about their teams and their athletes and all that, but some of these teams get knocked out for weeks at a time. Hopefully they can get this figured out. This conference play is supposed to start this week. You would have had, let's see, Georgetown, Creighton tonight, UConn, Xavier, Cincinnati, Houston, the American. You had some decent matchups, and all these games were wiped off the board. And tomorrow, Duke was supposed to play Clemson. That game's off. Florida State, Boston College off. Virginia Tech, North Carolina off. Marquette, St. John's in the Big East off. But we'll see who plays. I mean, just cross your fingers that you get anything from these teams at this point. BetMGM, the king of sports books. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, for new players only. Must be 21 years or older to play, and is legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. Mike, thanks to Alex Smart for joining us. And Alex, again, on a huge run in the NFL as far as guaranteed plays. Also, he's second in the NFL in units. So he's having a great year overall in the NFL. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of the Daily Insider. We'll be back with you coming up at noon on Wednesday as we continue our countdown towards 2022. But more bowl games coming up tomorrow, plenty of NBA. And again, we'll see what the college basketball slate gives us. Hopefully there's no more postponements or cancellations. Again, I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching. And as always, best of luck with your bets.